Hey, I've talked to a lot of successful people, and I've gotten advice and mentorship from people that have really helped me out along my journey and my family's journey to different success points that we were striving for in our life. And something that I've noticed as a common denominator is successful people all come from a story of adversity. They've overcome really difficult things and they didn't give up. One thing that I've learned is everything that you desire and want, any dream that you have, is usually on the other side of massive pain, adversity, struggle. It's God's way of molding us to get us ready to receive the reward or what's going to be needed to sustain that next level of success or journey or life. So what I really wanted to talk about today was what my family and I went through on our way to one of the goals that we had was to be financially free, to get out of the hamster wheel, to actually get our true freedom, which is something that you can, kind of like my Charlie Kirk shirt. There's not a lot of, there's no other shirt that I wear with another man's name written on the back. I won't wear any other jerseys and things like that. I just don't believe in wearing a man's name on my back other than my own. But I will wear Charlie Kirk's name. And I also will wear Christ's name if I feel worthy to do that. All right, let's continue. So what the heck did we go through to get to where we are? If you don't know me, my name's Mike Quist. My family and I have 4 sons. My wife and I have been married over 23 years. My boys, I have some grown boys that are in their 20s. In one's about to graduate from high school, and another 9-year-old, and they're all hard workers. And I learned my work ethic from my parents and working with my father, and we're passing that down to them. Something that my boys witnessed, my wife and I go through, was major adversity. You see, I started out in sales as a young man. I was selling alarm systems. As something that I enjoyed with sales, I actually studied sales, just like I used to study my college football game plan and playbook to memorize what I was supposed to do on every single call and every single formation that we had. I also studied sales that way. I would listen to guys like Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Tom Hopkins. I would digest that information back when it was on cassette tapes. I found these cassette tapes in my dad's shop. I'm in my workshop right now, and I actually found this one single cassette tape. And I remember listening to this cassette tape while I would jog on the treadmill. And my dad noticed me doing that, and he asked me why, and we had a conversation, and I said, I really like what this man is teaching. And it was Zig Ziglar's, his southern accent and the way that he taught and the way he had a different voice inflection where he'd talk really fast, and then he'd bring you in, and he would slow down, and he would make his points. And I learned about presentation, I learned about public speaking, I learned the power of communication. I also learned the power of persuasion and the power of sales and how to actually convey a need for a product that you believed in. And I also learned you have to believe very deeply in your product if you are going to sell that. At least I had to, because it's not my nature to sell something I don't believe in. And so I was in the sales job selling alarms, door to door, knock. And I would sell them alarms because in California, where I was living, every new house that was being built was pre-wired for alarm systems and for that type of communication, so that it can go outbound to a call center. They could alert the police if there's something going on. The systems have gotten more and more complex. However, at the time, I did very well. And my boss actually told me, hey, the next one of these satellite offices that I open, Mike, I'm going to actually invite you to run the office. And I was newly married, brand new wife, and it was time to get real serious because I wasn't looking for a job. I said a job is just over broke, J-O-B, and I wanted a yob, your own business. The boss is cool and the pay's pretty good too. However, I wanted to run this office myself. I wanted to do it with what I learned about sales. And what I did learn about sales was people like to see the value in what it is they're buying. And what I learned was, instead of a brochure about a keypad that I would sell, I actually went down to where they made the equipment and I bought a keypad, I bought some contacts, and I wired that up so that I could do a presentation right in front of the customer and show them how the keypad worked, and show them how they could alert the police in case of a disaster, how they could arm their house, how they could disarm the house, how they could, bypass windows if it was summer and they wanted to leave them partially open. There could be a contact a certain distance up, and I just showed them all the features. And then I showed them that it was really affordable and that they were spending more than the price of a cup of coffee a day right now on their coffee. And that's how much an alarm costs. Nonetheless, I did really well because of my presentation, because I learned how to look at people and how to communicate with people and how to be honest with people, how not to pressure people, but show a need, solve a problem, and have a solution, and then ask them if they would share this with their friends. This was really, really cool for me, but what really sucked was when that office came about, when the owner of this security company had another office open up, he actually hired somebody much older than I was, probably my age now. I'm in my mid 40s, and he brought someone from the outside in. And I looked at that and I went to my boss and I said, hey man, you told me that I was gonna get this opportunity. I've been performing amazing. I'm your top salesman. What's going on? Why did you give this to somebody else? I was really upset, and he kind of blew it off. It's all right, just keep going. And I went home, I was really upset. I talked to my wife about it. I actually called my dad and I said, Dad, here's what happened. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna walk away from this job. I can't work for somebody who doesn't do what they say they're gonna do. And my dad at the time was installing windows and painting houses. I said, is there any work that I could do with you to buy me some time to figure out what it is I'm gonna do with my life? And my dad said, yep, you could come paint houses. I hate painting houses. I'm getting these painting jobs, and I'll give those jobs to you. You can do the painting jobs. And he said he'll pay me $100 a day. And I was thrilled. I said, okay, that'll get me some time. I was making more than that at the alarm company, but that would buy me some time where I could still support my wife and figure out what it is I was going to do. So I went in the next day and I said, hey, I gotta walk away. I love you, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm looking for a career, not a job. And he said, okay, no problem. He wasn't even ruffled at all, which kind of hurt my ego a little bit. Well, as time went on, I started painting houses. I actually didn't know how to paint a house. My dad had the sprayer, he had the equipment, he had the masking material. This was before YouTube. I couldn't Google how to paint a house. I literally had to figure it out. He left me the gear, he left me the paint. I'd only used a brush. I didn't even know how to use a sprayer, and he went through it really, really fast for me. He had to get on to his job installing some windows. And there I was, by myself, married, quit my job. Now I'm gonna paint a house, and I had no idea what it is I was doing. But I figured it out. And I worked really hard at it. And I actually went into paint stores, and I would talk to the owners who sold paint. And I would say, hey, what would you do in this situation? What should I prime with? How do I prep a house that's stucco or composite or cedar shingles that they want painted? How do I mask properly? Is there any technique that you could recommend for doing, sidewalks fast? And I learned about all the different tips, tools, and tricks that painters learn over a career just by seeking mentorship. And what I learned was I could learn. I could gain skills, and as I stacked skills, I took my sales skills and I took my painting skills, and I realized that those could be coupled together. You see, my dad was getting jobs from a home improvement company fed to him because they would go out, do the marketing, get the job, and then give my dad the job. My dad would get paid a portion, but they would get paid much, much more because they owned the job, they sold the job, they subcontracted the job. My dad did the labor. I painted the house. My dad paid me $100. He may get a few $1,000s from me painting a house, but they were charging $10,000, $15,000 to paint a house. And that shocked me. I was I was working selling alarms for a couple hundred, and I saw they were selling paint jobs for $10,000 or $15,000. And this is in the early 2000s. I'm going, holy cow, what am I doing selling alarms? I should be painting houses, and I said, Dad, I would actually like to do this on my own. What do I do? He goes, you would need to get a contractor's license. I said, okay. I was young. I go, what does that require? I went down to the California State License Board and I figured out what it would take to get my contractor's license. I studied because it's such a difficult test. For me, it was a difficult test because it was 4 hours of legal and then 4 hours of trade. If you didn't pass the legal, you couldn't move on. And it was all contract law, and it was all the codes and all the things that you have to know that you actually never use in contracting. I had to learn so that I could pass this test, so that I could be blessed to pay the bond and insurance and start my own business. And I remember going through that. My wife would, we got study material and I would memorize all the study material. I did it just like I was learning that offense and that defense. When we would play another college team, we had to learn that offense, and we had to learn it so well that when the quarterback lined up, depending on how he set his feet, you could tell from the game film what play he might be running. You could tell on the pressure of the O-lineman's hands. If they were heavy on their hands, it's probably a run play because they're going to come crash down and try to create a hole right in front of me. Or if they're light on their hands, they're going to get and pass protect. And so you would pick up these idiosyncrasies, you would study that offense, you would study your opponent, and that's what I did to pass this test. I studied it. I worked really hard. I was in my very early 20s, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to conquer the world. Found out my wife's pregnant. Now the game got real serious. I was going to be a dad, okay? And so looking back and reverse engineering Zig Ziglar's success, other mentors' success, they have what they call head in the hands moments where you're scared to death. Your head's in your hands, you're sitting on a chair, it's in a dark room, you're terrified, and you don't know what to do. And if you don't have these moments, you're probably not dreaming big enough. You probably don't have goals that are scary enough. And I would advise you, I'm getting off track, but I'll circle back. You see, I was in this meeting the other day and I was a fly on the wall. I was just listening. And I like to listen. I actually train my sons. If you're gonna go to a conference or if you're gonna go to a meeting, listen a lot more than you talk. I said, you're gonna come across two ways. You can be like the most successful person at the building or at the meeting or at the conference, and you could tell everybody about yourself and they're going to be like, what an arrogant guy. Or you're going to be like the least successful and you're going to be running your mouth and you don't even know the story of the guy sitting across from you, and he's going to be like, this guy has no idea. You could learn so much more by shutting up, shutting your mouth, opening those ears. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them accordingly. So I forgot where I was, but I'm going to continue. I'm studying for this test. I'm scared to death. I really struggled in school. I had to work really, really hard in school. I got really good grades because I worked my freaking butt off in school. I couldn't read all the way up through like 6th grade. When we had to read out loud in class, I had the reading comprehension of like a 1st grader or kindergartner in 6th grade. And I was super, super embarrassed. And I had a teacher who pulled me aside one summer and she started me from 1st grade level and she started teaching me how to read. So by 8th grade, I could read. By 9th grade, they wanted to put me in special education classes, yet I wanted to get a full ride football scholarship. That was my big goal and my big dream at the time as a kid. And I went to school the first time in 9th grade, day 1, and I go into my first period class, and I then realized I'm in a special education class and I'm around kids that need a lot of help. I'm also around all the kids that got in major, major trouble. I was around gangbangers. I was around punks. I was around kids that were in really hard, sad situations. And here I am in that environment, and I felt like I didn't belong in that environment, and I got really upset. And I went into the counselor and I said, listen, I'm going to get a full ride football scholarship. My parents do not make enough money to send me to college. I have one way to get there, and it's going to be through sports. I'm going to get a full ride, but I need to be in college prep classes. And the counselor laughed at me. She's like, no, your tests do not allow you to go into college prep classes. And so I left school. I actually went to the nearest payphone and I called my mom and I told her I'm quitting school unless they put me in college prep classes. There's no point in this. And my mom convinced the counselor. She's like, what's the harm in giving him a chance? Let him prove to himself what he can and can't do. Just give him a chance. Thank God my mom did that, because when they gave me a chance, I remember that very first semester, I worked harder than I ever have. I had football every day after school. I worked out before and after school every day. And then I studied like crazy because school did not come easy for me. And I got a 4.0. I ended up graduating high school with a 3.83 GPA, which was really, really good. I was really proud of that. I scored high enough on my SAT to barely make it into St. Mary's College, which was like an Ivy League school on the West Coast. That's another story. That'll be another video. We're going to come back to this test, the contractor's test. Because of my background in education, I was terrified to fail this test. I don't like failing, so I will work so doggone hard to prevent that from happening. And that's what I did. And I remember going to that contractor's exam, and you're in a room with all these prospective contractors, and every state is different, but California is not an easy test. It's 2 4-hour tests. And so I sat down to take the law portion of the test, and I knew my material. I either knew it or I didn't, but the ones that I didn't, I would pass on, and I'm just going through them like forced repetition. I knew the answers because I'd memorized all the study material that I could find on the internet, any study material that anybody offered as a, like, you come pay and we'll train you how to pass the test. I studied, I memorized the material religiously. And so after I went through the test twice, it had only been 45 minutes on this 4-hour section. And you're supposed to raise your hand, and they come over to the computer and they enter a code, and it automatically scores the test and tells you if you're allowed to take the trade portion or the second 4-hour test. When I raised my hand, everybody in that room, there was probably 50 guys taking the test, turn and they look right at me, and they're like, you could tell, like, what an idiot. This kid is an idiot. He is no way he is done. And it actually made me self-conscious, like, man, I hope I didn't just screw up. And you know what happened? The lady said the best. She said, congratulations, you passed. And then she pulled up the next test. And so here we go. It's time for the trade. And I'm going through the trade portion, and it's about things that I had known more about. It wasn't all the legal stuff. It was more about practical stuff and how to read plans and things like that. And as I'm going through that, other men are raising their hand to come get graded to go to the second part. And you could hear the lady, she's whispering, but it's so quiet, I'm sorry, you failed. Over and over, these guys are failing. And I was so thankful that I had worked so hard with my wife memorizing that material. Lesson learned. Thank you, Zig Ziglar. Thank you, Brian Tracy. Thank you, Sales Job. Thank you for knocking doors and getting them slammed in my face. Thank you for overcoming fear and objections. And thank you for my experience and for my dad giving me the opportunity. My dad encouraged me to take this test. He wanted me to get out on my own. My dad didn't want to pay me $100 a day. He wanted me to make $3,000 a job. You see, there's only one man on this planet. If you're a young man, there's one man that wants you to be better than him, and that's your father. Be that if you're a dad. I digress. I go through the trade portion. Congratulations, you passed. I was the happiest young man on the planet. I went out, I'm in tears, telling my wife I did it. I started painting houses. I'm making $3,000 a week painting houses, man. I'm like, Yes, yes. Well, as time goes, I wanted to learn more skills. I learned how to do granite countertops. I learned how to do crown molding. I went to the tract homes that they were building in California. And what was cool about the tract developments is you would go through, you could see a house that's just a slab, or even down to the pad, and then like all the rough in for the plumbing and for the footings, and then the concrete, and then the framing and the electrical and the plumbing and the drywall. You could see how they finish, how they tape, how they texture. You get to see and reverse engineer how the house is built right there down the street. The whole thing is just in a line getting done, each tradesman going down the line. And so I went to these tract homes at night with my notebook, and I would measure and I would reverse engineer how they're building houses. And then I went into the tract homes that they would do the upgrades, and I would see what people are paying for their upgrades. And I'm like, golly, they are charging a fortune. That's getting rolled into a mortgage. They're going to pay 3 times that. And I would start meeting the homeowners as they were coming, like looking at their houses, be like, hey, did you pay for any upgrades? And I'd be like, I could actually give you the 2-tone paint in your house. I could do the crown molding for you. Like, don't pay that. I'll do it for this price. And I started getting jobs. If you're a builder, you probably hate me for that, but I was a young kid hustling, man. And it worked. So I'm gaining skills. I'm gaining knowledge. And then, I don't even want to talk about this. We get pregnant with our second son. And my wife and I are living the American dream, right? I'm making some money. So you know what we do? We stop renting and we buy a house. I put all my money into that house. I fix it all up. And you know what we do then? We go, real estate, that's the way to go. The purpose of every business is to buy real estate, buy real estate. Boom, we buy our second house, start renting out the first one. Awesome, we're rolling, man. You know what we do then? We buy a brand new painting van for me. Yeah. You know what I do then? On our anniversary, I buy my wife a Dodge Durango that has a Hemi. And my wife and I are rolling. We both come from very, very blue collar, very mediocre, very, lower middle class upbringing. And so we'd never had anything nice like that. And so we're rolling, man. We're overfinanced. We're borrowing way too much money. We're in debt and leverage, but I'm making good money. What could go wrong? Well, I'll tell you what went wrong. When my second boy was born, he had a pneumothorax. One of his lungs collapsed. They had to poke a hole through his chest and blow his lung up with a straw. His lungs weren't fully developed. They had to take us from Sacramento to the Bay Area to a specialized facility. And my son was dying in front of my eyes. I had to work 7 days a week to pay for all this nice stuff we had. And as I'm sitting there in the NICU watching my son fight for his life, we're getting calls that we're late on a payment, we're late on a car payment, we're late on a house payment. And I remember writing in my journal every day as I'm praying to God for my son's life, begging God to spare my son's life, just promising God what I would do if he spared my son's life. And I realized all this bull crap that we bought means zero, nothing to me compared to the life of my son. Well, at the same time we were in the NICU, my sister was watching our oldest boy for us so that we could focus on anything that we could do for my Bradley. And she took my son to a game that was a soccer game in our hometown in Elk Grove. There was this neighboring town, and they had a big soccer facility, and her little 5-6-year-old was playing soccer. My son was 2 years old. And at the soccer game, on a bicycle, a gangbanger comes by, pulls a gun out. My son is within about 10 feet of the shooting, and this gangbanger shoots another gangbanger 8 times in front of my kid. And I'm 2 hours away begging God for for the life of my kid, selling my soul if he will save his life, and this happens. We're getting calls from creditors, and I don't know what to do. Head in the hands, man. What do I do? And I remember my dad giving my son a blessing. Actually, that's not true. I asked my dad to give him a blessing, and he said, "That's your job." And I didn't feel worthy to do that. I wasn't doing everything right in my life where I felt like I was allowed to even ask God. I knew my dad was, so I asked him, and he said, "That's your job." That was a toughie. Head in the hands, man. And I gave my son a blessing. I begged God to save his life, and my dad said, "Mike, he's going to be fine." And I remember really being upset at my dad for that, because he didn't know. I was like, "You can't know that. You don't tell me that. You don't know that." And he said, "Yes, he will. I know that." And I was like, my dad never lies to me. He's going to be okay. To this day, my boy, that boy who was dying, is tough as nails, no health problems, can outrun all my other boys, smart as a whip. They said he was going to have brain damage and need a bunch of different surgeries. He had a pectus excavatum. He had all these problems that was going to require further surgeries in his life. He has never had another surgery. That kid is an animal. He's awesome. He's so healthy. Now what do I do financially? We're crashing. Guess what happened? 2008. We had bought some homes to rent. We're living in one. I had to work 7 days a week to afford all these payments. And I was in over my head. I didn't know what to do. And I went to a mentor, and I said, hey, this man was actually really well off financially, made a lot of smart moves. He was methodical. He thought things out. So as a young man, I went to him and I said, "Hey, what would you do?" He gave me some advice. It was very, very hard advice, but he said, "Give it all back to the bank. And you're young." He says, "If you would have made these moves a few years earlier, you would have looked like a hero." He goes, you got bad timing, and timing beats speed and power all day long, and you're in trouble." He said, "You need to start over, and you need to pay for things instead of finance them." Then I had to tell my wife I had to give her car back. Then I had to give my van back. I went on Craigslist and I bought a cheapest cargo van I could find, bought my wife a clunker. I asked my parents if I could move back in with them. I traded them work on their house so we could get their house ready to sell. And I said, I gotta get out of California. I'm not raising my kid where a gangbanger is gonna pull out a gun and shoot another guy in front of my kid at the doggone park. Life, man. Here we go. You're gonna fast forward, and all the skills and everything that I learned, it took us to where we got. It took my wife and I from a journey that we learned not to want. We learned to pay for things before we never financed another thing since then. I have never financed anything since that date. We pay for everything or we don't buy it. I could have so much more real estate right now if I leveraged and played that real estate game, but we don't do that. I've been tempted to go down that road, and I won't do it because nothing feels more free than not having the weight of debt and that kind of thing on your shoulders. And this meeting that I was in, that I was in the other day, now I remember what I was going to talk about. What happened was I was listening, fly on the wall, not talking, listening. And you know what was happening is this man was talking about a job that he had that he really liked. And you could tell he was genuinely like, he liked this job he used to have. He said, "I quit that job because I got another job that would give me better insurance. Better insurance." And I was thinking to myself, man, you gave up what you really enjoyed doing to get better insurance. And I'm thinking like a million things, like, why not go get a side hustle? Why not do that thing for yourself? Why not start your own business in that realm on the side, build it up, and if you love that thing, man, there's so many routes you can go here. I'm just like processing, but I'm keeping my mouth shut because I don't want to offend the guy. But then, guess what happened right after that? Right after that, I get this notice in my email about when I sold one of our companies, I transitioned that company to the firm that bought it from me, and so I was working for them for a couple of years. And as I was working for them, guess what they had that I'd never had before? They had benefits. I've always paid for our health insurance, and I didn't have retirement. I worked my tail off, and real estate was going to be my retirement, and working smarter, not harder, and understanding the leverage, and getting, and like, do you know what you could do if you just put your money in the S&P 500 or some proven assets that appreciate on the long haul? Like, gosh, don't even get me started. I got this notice and it said, you got your 401k sitting here. What do you want to do with it? Because I don't work for them anymore. It's been a few years since I've worked for them. And I'm like, oh yeah, I had a 401k. They were like, and I looked at the 401k and it was like 120 grand. Sorry, my nose is itchy. I'm like, wow, that's cool, man. Right on. I know what I'm going to do with that. We're doing this big old project right now, and we're passion project. I can't tell you what I'm doing yet. I have to keep my mouth shut, but it's coming. All right, so I'm like, cool. I know what I'm doing with that money. And so I call them up and I say, hey, I want to cash out. Oh, you don't want to do that. This is a 401k. You're gonna have to pay taxes. Well, am I gonna have to pay taxes when I take it out when I'm older? Well, yeah, but if you keep it in until 2047 at your retirement age, it's gonna accrue to from 120 to like 147 or something. I'm like, what, bro? You know what I could do with that money right now with just putting it into my own business? No. Get it out. He's like, okay, we'll get it out. He goes, you're gonna need to owe 20% to the federal government. I'm like, oh, okay. And you're gonna owe 9 point something percent to Oregon. Oh, okay. And you're gonna have a 10% early withdrawal fee. Oh, okay. And he's like, you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yep. What are you going to do with it, bro? You're going to give me 3% while you take, you know the game. And I realized people are being duped. Like, the 401k is their exit strategy for retirement. And then they wonder, what the heck am I going to do now? Because all these things start coming out. And that 120 quickly went to like 80 grand. I'm like, wow, people work their whole life for benefits that aren't worth the lemon or the squeeze. People will change something that they love doing to just barely get by. You see, I know that most employers will pay you just enough so that you don't quit. That's what my early boss did. We'll go back to that. You see, Rich and I stayed friends. He would call me because I would get referrals all the time because I had been doing security sales for a couple of years, and I would get these referrals all the time because I was a nice guy. I got a lot of referrals, and I would just send them, hey, Rich, here's another referral. And that referral would be worth a lot to him. He made money not only on the sales of the product, but the residual is where he made the money, is the monitoring, the monthly payment of, I want you to hook my system up to, the emergency services. And Rich is like, dude, I'll pay you. I'm like, no, you don't got to pay me for it, dude. There it is. And we stayed friends. And after a few months, Rich, the guy he hired, guess what? He didn't work out. Go figure. He didn't work out. He missed out. He should have had me do it, right? He's like, hey, Mike, come on back. I'll put. I'm like, no, dude. I'm painting houses, man. Oh, come on. I go, no, I'm making good money. It's my own business now. You did the best thing you could have ever done, man. You made me quit. I'm thankful that I quit and I bet on myself. And since then, I've never worked for anybody else. My wife and I have had our own businesses. We've actually, we had that painting business. We did granite countertops. We started our stone coat business. We've made millions in Airbnb. We've done real estate business. We've had a lot of business that has gone over 7 figures, multiple 8 figures. We've done a lot of different business ventures. And what I realized, the more and more that I realized, that business is actually not complicated. Usually the great things are right after the pain. You got to go through the pain. You're going to go through fear. If you're not scared to do it, it's probably not even worth it. If you're so hung up on the security of benefits, you're going to miss out on actual freedom. Right there, man. Thank you, Charlie Kirk. That was the purpose of this video. Is because if I could generate any ideas or any gumption or any thought inside of you, stir your faculties to make a move. Don't quit your job, but think about a need. Think about a person that you want to serve. Who is it that you want to serve? Who is it that you want to help? What's going to help them that you're really, really passionately good at? And go do that. Because there's not enough people that are actually innovating. There's not enough people that are engineering. There's not enough people that are blue collar. There's not enough tradesmen. There's not enough people doing home services. There's not enough people being willing to go door to door and find a customer even after sunset, because you're not going to go home to your wife and say, I failed today. Get your head in your hands, man. Get scared a little bit. You see, if you're falling for the fact that you're going to go to college and you're going to learn an outdated subject matter that AI is going to replace right here and right now, and maybe your parents who've put into that college fund religiously, and you're going to do your kids a disservice by not going through pain to actually go to college, so they go there, screw around, flunk out, and waste that money anyways, because you're giving some Caesar in Rome the opportunity to brainwash your child, and at best they see through it, but what are they gaining from it that they cannot gain right now by going and serving somebody? Go work for somebody who you want to have a business like them. Learn from them. Get that mentorship. If you're going to go to college, you better damn sure have a plan, because you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I went to college, I played football, I got hurt, and I realized what I was learning was indoctrinating, actually disgusting stuff. I wasn't happy. I was going to school in the Bay Area, California. Can you only imagine? It was terrible. I would not recommend it to my kids. And I won't. And one of my kids is in school right now, and you guess who's paying for it? He is. He worked for me for a year to pay for this year's school. I'm really proud of him. And he's taken it really, really seriously. So this has been about a lot of subject matter. This is something that I'm simply trying to give back, and maybe I'm going to help a couple people that are just wondering what they should do. Maybe they're in a really bad position right now. Maybe you're barely making it financially. If you don't figure out how to stop trading your time for dollars, you're only going to lose all your time, because we don't get that back. You got to start to learn how to leverage that, where there's no glass ceiling on your time. You see, when you buy stuff, it's so painful because it took time that you traded to buy that thing. But when you look at the value of the thing and you were able to use leverage and intelligence and hard work and your own business to create that money to buy that thing, you're not trading your time anymore. Is it worth the value? I don't care about a new car. I don't care about flashy things. I care about value. Can this bring me value? Can this give me more of my time back? Guys, I hope that you process this a little bit. Let me know, is there anything in this jumbled mess of thought that has given you any value? If there has, subscribe. My goal is to get better at speaking, better at teaching, and better at conveying the things that have blessed my life, because I want to give them to you at no charge. So tell me what I could tell you, what you would like to know about, and help me with some new ideas, because this is my practice to hone my skills to be a better communicator. And remember, until next time, you got this. Thank you, Charlie Kirk, and thank you, God, for the head and the hands moments. We'll see you on the next video.